Our first presenter tonight is Tony Zioli, and Tony has been working with WordPress since 2003, but tonight he's going to talk about a plugin he acquired in 2019 and converted to a freemium product. So go ahead, Tony, share your screen and let's go.
Great, thanks, Steve. I really appreciate the invitation to speak tonight. And let me just get my screen share here going. Let me know if you can see that okay.
Yep, we see it.
With my LinkedIn
profile.
Okay, great. So thank you everyone for attending tonight. As Steve said, my name is Tony Zioli. I've been involved in the WordPress universe since around 2003 when I started playing with it at the Associated Press. And for the last so many years, I became a WordPress technical solutions consultant and built my own agency. So you can see I have a LinkedIn profile. If you're looking for more information on me, I'm right there on LinkedIn. I also have tonyzioli.com, which is my consulting site, coaching and consulting and training site. And then Digital Strategy Works is the agency that I started in 2009, just before I left New York City to move to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And I've been in North Carolina for the last 11 years, hop, skipping, and jumping across the state. I currently live in Asheville. So tonight, as Steve said, we're going to talk about how it is that I took a WordPress plugin from a free orphaned plugin to a freemium product. And it really starts with my love of DJ culture. Besides WordPress, I've been a DJ for 4 decades. I've worked in and around the dance music industry, specifically the house music industry, since the early 90s. And I've had this fascination with DJ culture and radio for most of my life. And I even worked in radio when I was much younger. I worked as an intern in high school in the mid-'80s at a radio station in Boston. And then I went to school for radio and television broadcasting in New York City in Yonkers, in fact, up there by St. John's Hospital. And so because of that, carrying that forward across the years, I started a company called Netmix, and I'll show you that site in a little bit. But Netmix was the first DJ mix show site in the world that was launched in 1995, 96, and then I brought it to New York City in 2001. I'm sorry, brought it to New York City in 96, launched in 95, New York City 96, sold it in 2000 in New York City, and then went on. So my career, and the reason why this is important is because it shows you my background and how this all comes about, has really been in product development and project management, and really helping create value in organizations and helping people solve complex technical issues. And I'm really a non-technical person in the sense that I'm not a developer. I understand reading code and what it does and why it's there. I play with a lot of plugins. I work with a lot of developers and designers. I've built probably 200 WordPress websites in my career with with my teams. I offshore. I have, I'm really immersed. And so here in Asheville, and when I arrived here in 2014, I realized that there wasn't any house music here. It was really a nascent format. People were really spinning like trance and techno and drum and bass. And at that time, the Moog Fest was going on, which was Moog, the synthesizer company that builds all kinds of electronic music equipment. They're based here in Asheville, and they were running a big festival in Asheville for a couple of years, just as I had gotten here. And so I was like, this is so exciting. I moved to Asheville. This is great. There's electronic music here, but where's the house music? And so I decided to start a radio show on a small local LPFM. The one that you're seeing on the screen right now is another one that I was on a few years later. But the first one was called Asheville FM. And come to find out, Asheville FM was running what you see here on this website, the radio station plugin. And I didn't even know it at the time that they had been running it. and that was 2014. So I started my radio program there, and super exciting to doing it every week, while running digital strategy works, building websites for people, staying abreast of all the trials and tribulations of WordPress and plugins and themes and whatnot. And I then left that station, and a few years later, I wanted to get back on the air. So I got back on the air with this station, WPVM, which is across town and right in downtown Asheville. And the woman who ran the station has a WordPress website, and she was looking for help with converting the site, making it better. And so I started consulting to her while doing my radio show. What you see in terms of her design and aesthetic is not my work. I ended up leaving the station later on, which is a whole different story, but didn't finish my work with her, and she kind of went off on her own. But still, she kept the radio station plugin for WordPress, which you can see here on the screen. And we'll walk through what it does later, and I'll just kind of continue going to the story of how I took this over. So the plugin basically allows you to create a show schedule on your WordPress website. It does many more things, like I said, that we'll get into. A woman named Nikki Blight from NLB Creations, she is the original creator of Radio Station, and I credit her with really bringing something to the fore that didn't exist in the WordPress universe. It really was the only plugin out there before some themes came about, and maybe another radio station plugin a little later. But this was really the first one. She started in it, I believe, in 2013, and then you can see, published February 25th, 2013. And she worked on it for a while through 2015, and you can see her, her blog archives here. And then she got a full-time job. She lives in Colorado, and she got a full-time job, and she had to abandon the plugin. So going back to WPVM, years later, 2019, working with the station, looking at this plugin and trying to adapt it to Divi. And for some reason, the theme framework was breaking with the plugin, and it wasn't working correctly. And the plugin hadn't been updated in a while. And it had its own, WordPress.org, plugins page. So I went there and I found out that Nikki was the author. And I said, geez, what's going on with this thing? Why isn't it functioning? Why hasn't it been updated? I found out it wasn't updated since 2015, and it's 2019. And it was something that I think, radio stations really need. And me being passionate about radio, I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to help my station and maybe help other stations. Come to find out, like I said, Asheville FM has it on their site too. Help them and help stations around the world, right, using this plugin. And so I started looking into it, and how you look into how a plugin is doing is really, and I think anybody who's experienced at WordPress probably knows this, is that when you're going around looking for a tool to solve a problem, you're going to want to know, how established is this tool, how many people are using it, what's been going on with it, who's been updating it and why, and just all the steps along the way. And so I looked into the plugin, and I found that when I got here, the active installations were at 1,000 plus. And then when I looked at the advanced view, which we see here, and this doesn't really go back all the way. It really goes back to March 2021, and WordPress doesn't provide. But, back then you could see the active install growth and the downloads history. So the all-time downloads history when I took it over was around 62,000. And every day it was getting around 5 or 7 downloads, here or there. And I said, oh, gee, this is interesting. This woman set up this plugin. She's really not doing anything with it. But it has this installed user base of over 1,000 active installs. I don't know how many, it shows you right here, like how many are on the latest version, how many are on older versions. And you can see that we currently have 50.3% on our most current version and another 34% on the last version. So you can see a high number of people have converted. And I think to this day, the conversions number is probably skewed because now we have auto update. So we can't tell exactly who's updating the plugin. But I will show you a method of how I've learned who's using it, and how I can track some of those types of things today that didn't exist in 2019 through the distribution channel that I'm working with called Freemium. Maybe some of you have heard of Freemium, and we'll get into Freemium in a little bit. So I checked out the support forums, I checked out the reviews, checked all this out, saw that, things had been happening, but it really dropped off. So I contacted Nikki on Facebook, and I said to her, I couldn't get in touch with her. I contacted her through the NLB Creations website. She didn't get back to me. Finally, I was so driven and motivated to find out more about this, and I really wanted to find out why it hadn't been upgraded. And so I finally got in touch with her through Facebook, and she said, Tony, I got a job a couple of years ago. I really focused on that. Yeah, I love doing radio station, but I'm not really going to be focused on updating it. And so, besides all the things that I've done career-wise, in corporate and companies, I've also been an entrepreneur with my own company, startups, and these sorts of things, and helping other startups grow. And so I had faith in myself, and thought, hey, if I take this over, shoot, I can make something out of it. I can, I know WordPress, I know developers, I know designers. I've been around, and Steve, I mean, I have to really grateful to Steve for keeping this WordPress meetup running so long. Not to get off track, but just to say, Steve had me speak at WordCamp in 2008 or 2009. So, I had all this experience speaking at WordCamp Raleigh, WordCamp Hampton Roads, WordCamp Asheville, WordPress meetups, and was a meetup founder myself for a while in Chapel Hill for 7 years. I was running the Chapel Hill meetup. So I said, I have to be able to do this because, and some of you may feel this way, is that we do design and development for other people, and we build their projects and products for them, and then we leave, and we're not really part of the equation anymore. And that's good in some respects because you get paid a princely sum sometimes to do it, or maybe not, depending on what you charge or whatever have you. But there comes a time where you say, do I want to be building websites for other people, or do I want to own a product that I own, that I innovate, that I control, and that I bring to market, and that I make successful? Because I've been making other people's products successful, but it was really time in 2019 to think about for myself and where I was, can I do this and be successful? And so I made the bet, and Nikki asked me, do you want to take it over? And without a developer, without any plan whatsoever, without even knowing how to push a plugin from Git to the WordPress SVN, I said, sure, I'll take it over. And she didn't know that. I didn't let on that I was a rookie. I mean, she probably looked me up and found out all this stuff about me and said, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. And I thought I knew what I was doing. And that was not, I sort of knew what I was doing, but then I would learn later, I knew what I was doing, but I had to learn a lot. And so you can see, from when we took it over at 1,000, we've now got 2,000 plus active installs for the free version, and we've got we're up to, what was it, 99,000. So I like to say in 6 years, this plugin did 62,000 downloads. In 2 years, we've done almost 30,000. Almost 40,000 downloads, right? So that's how fast the growth happened when you applied development to this. And how did I do that? Well, I went out to the WordPress jobs board out there, which some people may visit or not, and I posted a job. And a developer in Australia named Tony Hayes came on board, and he asked me, what I was doing with the plugin, and asked him if he wanted to help. And he said, sure. He had worked with the plugin with a friend of his in radio in Australia. He's about 2 hours south of Brisbane. And so he had worked on the plugin before. He knew it. And he's a really gifted WordPress developer. I mean, I am so fortunate to have found Tony, who's got an incredible skill set and has built, other plugins on his own and helped other people succeed. And so what was the next step? It was getting him on board legally. So, we had to set up a legal framework. Now, I mentioned netmix, which is a website that I started in 1995 to produce DJ mix shows. It's like Mixcloud is today. It was pre-Mixcloud. It was the Mixcloud of the 90s. And it got up to about 1 million unique visitors a year. And it was a really great site, working with a lot of major labels. But since 2001, it's really been dormant. And so I've reapplied the netmix domain name to this project as a station directory. So now if anybody uses the pro version, they get listed in the directory and get an SEO backlink. So that was a little neat aside that I tied to the project to make it a little bit more attractive for people to subscribe, right? So I got the legal framework going with Tony, did an agreement with him. Happy to share. I gave him 15% of the company over 3 years for 5% a year for the work that he put in, and then we would share in the profits for a certain amount of time, and then it would be on like a scale that as the company grew and what I would share with him and so on and so forth from the upfront. So he would have buy-in. So I did do that to make sure I secured him and his talent, and I did that through an attorney in Nashville who wrote up his agreement, and that was about $750 to do that agreement, $750 to $1,000 to do that agreement. I also own the trademark for netmix and for streaming music over the internet. So I acquired that trademark in the 90s and had to renew that mark recently, and that cost about $1,500. So just initially, I was already in this for $2,500 just to shore up Tony, get those agreements done, and then shore up the trademark and get a trademark attorney. I have a great trademark attorney now in DC who does that for me, and she's fantastic. And then it was also about, and I'll go through this on the radiostation.pro site in a second. This is the demo site, and this is the pro site. Terms and conditions, right? So, we wanted to launch, and we wanted to make sure that we had the terms and conditions done, which I don't seem to have a footer on. I'll have to show you all that later. But anyway, it ended up costing another $1,500 to do your terms and conditions, your privacy policy, your acceptable use policy, your cookie policy. Some people like to go out, and do use IU Bender for a cookie policy, which is fine. But, we really needed to shore this up and make sure that we had all our ducks in a row. And I think, actually, do I have that on? Should be on netmix, though. Yeah. So here it is all here. I got to just transfer it over to Radio Station Pro. But, you can look through these on netmix just to get an idea of what a terms and conditions, in terms of use, terms and conditions, acceptable use policy all say. And just, an FYI, as most attorneys copy this stuff from already published content. They get it from legal document places that have already formatted these things. So it's not like they created it out of the ether. They took a document and then applied all the rules that we talked about through our strategy sessions with my legal attorney in Nashville to create, these different policies, the copyright policy, acceptable use, privacy, terms of use. And I really advise people, if you're going to do this, that is a good investment to make, because you want to be legally protected from the get-go, right? So we did that. Um, and so, it was taking over the plugin. It was getting all the contracts and agreements done. And then it was about time to, find out, well, how do we start building out a strategy for this for our, for development, right? And so we set up a Git repo, which is publicly available. We have a pro and a public, we have a pro private repo and a public repo for the open source version. We are working with Hacktoberfest, so you'll see this tag here. DigitalOcean is doing Hacktoberfest this year, and they are promoting, developers to come in and help with open source projects. And so they, say, hey, add your tag, and people that are participating in Hacktoberfest can come in and find issues that they can work on. But there's 47 issues outstanding right now. Here, if any developers are on, right now that want to get involved in this on the free version, they can certainly pick off something in the issue tracker. And so this is what we did. We set this up, and then I had to learn how to deploy code. And so I didn't know how to do that. I did think of one thing before I talk about that. There are some things in this mechanism here that you should know. When someone is transferring a plugin to you, they have to make you the owner, right? So they have to actually make you the owner of the plugin. If they make you a contributor, where your commit, your committers are over here. Yeah, you can have committers over here, but that doesn't mean you own it. So you have to make sure that the person transfers ownership to you, as well as helping you add yourself. And so now you can see, within the README files of the plugin, you can add yourself as, as the owner, as the controllers or the owners of the plugin. But it's really this key of getting this, this owner here. And I don't want to make the deployer the owner at this point. I don't want to transfer it to them. There's no reason to, because I'm the current owner, right? And so, you'll see this committers over here. And so I was starting to get into talking about committing. So I had to start to teach myself how to commit. And so I found this app called Versions. And Versions helps you log in SVN into WordPress.org and get, the trunk and all the previous tags, tag versions that you can upload through SVN right up to WordPress.org, and then it will remove the last version and restore the latest version, right? But what you have to do in this trunk is actually go through here and delete all these, right? From the trunk, hit update, but then you have your Git on your desktop, because I have Git desktop. I have the master branch here. I fetch the master branch, and then on my desktop somewhere, I have all those files. So then I drag and drop. I delete the files from one directory. I drag and drop the files from the Git directory into the versions directory, and then I can right click, and commit. Where is it? I think that you can commit here, or when these are committable, they'll say commit. Now, I'm not 100% skilled in this. It's just I learned how to do this portion. Of course, there's changelog that you want to keep updated. There's, your README file, readme.md, your readme.txt file, your radiostation.php file. All those files have something in them that need to be updated every time you deploy a new version. So in version control with GitHub, I'm always setting a ticket for Tony Hayes to say, okay, did we do this X, Y, and Z, when we're about to deploy a new release. And I'm about to deploy a new release tonight, which I already pulled. And that's why you don't see any local changes right now, because I already pulled those changes. And you can see that in my history, I've pulled what he has pushed to master, right? So those are things that you need to know how to do. Now, when you see this deployer.saravo, there's a way to deploy from Git to WordPress through to SVN through Deployer Seravo. But truth be told, I'm nervous. I've never done it, so I haven't used it. I'll use it one day, but I'm just like, and that way I don't have to delete something. But I haven't done it yet, so I'm afraid to do it because I don't know. Nobody's really showed me. I've gone to the website, but I need to ask that developer, like, give me a step-by-step tutorial because their documentation isn't really that great. Give me a step-by-step tutorial and let me do that. So there are two different ways to deploy via SVN. So I'll move on now and say, let's go to, so for the last 2 years, we've been building out the freemium version. And then for the last year, we decided to build out a pro version. And it became radiostation.pro. Now, I am fortunate in my life to actually have a domain that has radio station in it as just the key term, which is awesome. And I couldn't believe anybody somebody didn't register it. If somebody can put themselves on mute, I can hear them. I can hear something in the background. Something about Minecraft and
Stephen Breton, I think that's you, Stephen. I think your mic is on.
Yeah, he's probably
walked away.
Yeah, I'll just keep on going. I'll just try not to be distracted. It's fine. So you can see Radio Station Pro. But before we built Radio Station Pro, we wanted to build Radio Station for WordPress demo site. So here's our demo site, and it looks just like the Radio Station site where we, have our demo version. You can see that really fade in is part of the Pro version. And here's where we host the demo stuff, right? But I wanted to find out first, before we went pro, who's using free? Because now the idea is, how am I going to convert free to pro? And so Tony found this site called Public WWW. And for $50, I could sign up and I could pull all the web pages that have this path, plugins, all the websites that have this path. And I can see all those sites. So I was like, oh, score. I can see all these sites. But the thing is, then you have to go through them. And so there were 1,108 returning right now, even though there are more seemingly. So it's not getting everyone, but it's getting a good majority of folks that are using the plugin. And so that was great to get that information. So if you're looking to understand who's using a plugin, you can put that path here. You can pay that money. If you want to do the free, they only give you have to upgrade, right? So my upgrade has expired. So I have to upgrade again just to get the whole list. But I had already downloaded it before as a CSV file. So I don't need to do that right now. You can see you can do that here. So that gave me the impetus to say, how can we go pro? And so then we went pro and we started defining the features for pro. And the feature set, and I won't go through all of them, but I'll just show you a scroll, the dynamic visual schedule editing, the adaptive layouts, a continuous streaming audio player, responsive show pages, widgets and shortcodes, episodes and playlists. And we then adopted a free trial, which I'll talk about in the freemium discussion, and some more marketing text, and so to speak, right? Frequently asked questions. So it's about setting up a website, getting your email marketing list set up through MailChimp, driving people to that email list from the plugin, the back end of the plugin itself. So when people started installing the plugin, they started signing up for the mailing list, which was great. And we got our mailing list from 100 up to about 620. And then what happened was we adopted Freemium as a distribution partner. Now, Freemium does a couple of things. When you use Freemium as a distribution partner and you load their SDK into your free version, they will tell you all of the sites who are using your free version. So not only now do I have the public www site to tell me that, I also have now this core component of free installed in the free version reporting back who's using free. So that gave me the ideas around, okay, who is this and what part of the market do I need to be at? Where does my pricing need to be? And how do I do that, right? How do I do pricing? How do I think about that logic? And how am I going to start converting, all of these people, right, to, to pro, if they'll even go for it. The other interesting thing that happens is when people are using your free version and they download it and install it, if they don't uncheck sign up for mailing list, then I get their email addresses as well. So I get their email addresses right into my MailChimp, because through Freemium it has a MailChimp integration. So now my mailing list grew from 620 to over 3,000, and I didn't realize it until after we did our first launch. So I had really launched with a targeted list of about 200 select users that we did our first launch with, and then figured out that, I just stumbled across it. So when we did our relaunch with new pricing, I really targeted the whole group, because we used this thing called the product launch formula by a famous marketer who sells his product launch formula for thousands of dollars, and he has a book and whatnot. But we seemingly got those videos for free somewhere, and we followed certain concepts in the product launch formula to launch the pro version. And so we set up a sales landing page, drove people to the landing page to get an opt-in, to send them an offer, couponing, and those sorts of things. So it was really about the end-to-end, as you can see, just in kind of summary, it was really about the end-to-end experience of having to figure it all out on the fly. And the pricing component was really, really, really difficult, and it's still really difficult. We started at $2.99 for our pricing, and in our first iteration, we gave a 40% off coupon code, and that went down. We got a lot of people who bought at $2.09. We had somebody stumble and buy at $2.99, and then we had some people buy at, I think it was $29 a month. So it was $2.99 and $29 a month. But when I went back and looked through, we did about a 4% conversion, which my advisors, and I have a number of people on my board of advisors, like Michael Torbert from All in One SEO is on my advisory board, and a few other people in radio. The CTO of Gas Buddy is on my advisory board. So going back to my advisory board and asking them, well, what's an acceptable conversion rate? And they said 4% was great. Even though 4% with only, an email list of 292 people was really about, 12 to 15 sales in the first iteration, right? And it's grown since then, but it's really difficult to convert, because you think all those people on the free list, are going to subscribe, are going to convert. They're going to say, wow, this is great. I want to go from free to pro, but who knows if they even read the email? Sure, you get reports on who reads it, and I see who reads it in MailChimp. I see all those reports, but not, many of them don't take action, but maybe they don't need it. And when I grabbed that whole list of 3,000 from Freemium and imported into MailChimp and did a blast, I ended up losing about 300 subscribers who all unsubscribed and didn't want those marketing messages coming fast and furious in the product launch formula format. So those were hard lessons learned, right? And the pricing model lesson, I tried to, if any of you know who Chris Lima is, chrislima.com, and he, works out in the West Coast, and he's a WordPress consultant, and a lot of people know him. He's really prolific in terms of blogging and writing about WordPress, and a lot of people hire him. He wrote that WordPress plugins, he thinks, are too inexpensive. They should cost more. And so Freemium feels the same way. And of course, Freemium has a vested interest, because they're going to make more money if plugins are higher priced. But what we found out is that Envato, who do ThemeForest and Code Canyon, had capped the price of a WordPress plugin at $89. I think it was $79 or $89. So if you were a theme author for many years on ThemeForest or Code Canyon, you couldn't sell anything over $89. So Envato actually kind of spoiled the market by pushing prices down and forcing developers like myself, and I'll call myself a developer even though I'm not a code developer, I'm a maintainer, are then beholden to them for sales in their aggregator model, but then they say you can't charge more. But the problem is if you get inundated with support requests, then it's going to cost you more to handle your support requests. And if you can't charge more, then how are you going to survive? So their model actually, people rush to Envato and think that's the holy grail. But the reality is that you can get crushed in Envato if you're successful, right? And successful means getting inundated with support requests, because that's the measure of success, right? Is that you do a great job, you get the plugin out there, and all of a sudden, everybody's out there and buying it from you, and then they're inundating you with support requests. Then you have to hire someone to deal with that, and that becomes a cost in your business, and so on and so forth, because you can't personally do that all day long. Right now, I can, because we don't have that problem yet, but just wanted to let everybody know that that's a factor. Envato has since lifted their pricing cap, and you can charge, I think, whatever you want now. But because theme authors and plugin developers were complaining that they were losing, they weren't able to grow because they couldn't charge more. And that's why you see a lot of plugin authors that don't go like a Gravity Forms or a Ninja Forms. They don't sell through Code Canyon. Who sells through Code Canyon are a lot of these offshore developers, who aren't concerned as much about quality of product, I think, and support, as I think the established WordPress communities in Western countries. I don't want to be presumptuous, but that's the gut feeling that I have. They're good, I'm sure, and they help out where they can. But I've dealt with some offshore developers who, some plugins that I bought and acquired, and they weren't super helpful and they weren't super invested. They just did this because they thought they could make money, I think, and they do, and that's great. But you see the larger, the AI SEOs of the world, the Yoast, these are professional premium plugins that have to sell and distribute on their own. And so, someone might ask me, well, why didn't I choose Easy Digital Downloads, or why didn't I choose WooCommerce? Well, you can see that Freemium gives us tools and SDK to plug in, which those two systems do not. Or, I know that WooCommerce doesn't, but I can't be 100% sure about Easy Digital Downloads. But Freemium gives us that, and I can extract data, real world data from Freemium that I think makes it worth the 7%, plus whatever their transaction fee is at 3% for Stripe and whatnot. So it might be 10%, but 10% is a cost that I'm willing to bear to get this information to help me model this thing out and figure out the pricing. So we changed the pricing because we thought, okay, if people bought at 209 and people weren't buying, even stopping by, because I'm an SEO expert as well. I've worked for All-in-One SEO, so I've got a well SEO'd and well page speed optimized site, and I'm already growing my traffic through blogging and social media. I've got people stopping by, but they weren't buying at $2.99. So that told me that my market is the lower end of the market and not the higher end of the market. So now I'm going to have to come down in price, even though we think that we provide an incredible value. A couple other things that you see here is that we only have 1 year, 1 annual, and 1 monthly. Well, we only have one offering, Pro, but we're going to now have to go to a Plus version, which will have fewer features, and we're going to break out our audio player as a standalone add-on for free. So if people want that standalone add-on, they could buy that for like $39 a year, or $9 a month or something like that, right? So I have to think about that, about how to now, and I read this on Chris Lima's blog about ladders, about getting people to climb the ladder that they want to climb. And right now, I'm trying to drive people into a ladder that they may not want to climb. So now I need to have 2 other ladders. The pro ladder is 1, the plus ladder is 2, and the add-on ladder is 3. And then we'll have to break out some more add-ons and look for more opportunity elsewhere in the radio market. So right now I'm just doing, PR, marketing, outreach to college stations, outreach to LPFMs on an individual basis, selling door to door, so to speak, the benefits of this plugin and trying to get drive interest to action. So if you want to start a plugin today, you really have to look at what is it you want to do. I found one the other day on Twitter called Newsletter Glue. And we've all seen newsletters in WordPress for many years, but she's built a really cool version of a newsletter in WordPress. And even she asked me about, she's struggling with pricing. She's struggling with the uptake, right, of getting users from free to pro, or even getting users in general, and how you get users and where you go and what you do. I haven't yet spent any money in social media on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook. I'm not sure if I want to do that yet. And I haven't done any Google AdWords because this is all self-funded right now. And I really like to take money from sales and apply that to advertising and not pay out of pocket. But we'll see. I may have to do that, in the near future. And the price could drop again, to $149 if I'm not getting drive-by sales. So the other thing that we do too is obviously coupon. So wherever, where's my demo site here? GoPro 30. It's always giving somebody a coupon code, whether it's in the email newsletter through MailChimp, or whether it's on the demo site or some other promotion or co-promotion with another plugin. And so, I have a partners page now on the pro site. This is the pricing page, which doesn't have a footer. Let's go back to home. I'll just show you. So, something like you want to have partners. So I've been talking to partners like, the events calendar, and I've been talking to AIO SEO, and I've been, talking to WP Engine, and I'm an affiliate of all of these. And so that's maybe another form of revenue. And then we have a Patreon as well. And so we opened up Patreon. So when you are on the demo site and you want to contribute, I'm sorry, when you're on netmix, wherever that went, subscribe, plugin, view all features, you could become a patron and, go to Patreon, and, we only have 10 patrons. I just did a newsletter yesterday, basically pleading, admittedly pleading for people. We have 3,000 people on our email list saying, hey, if you're using free, it's only give us $5 a month. And even that, we got 2 or 3 clicks to Patreon, and nobody signed up. So it's tough going out there. It's not an easy win, but I'm in it for the long haul. It's once you invest the money early on, there's really, with a plugin, there's no hosting other than your websites. You could do a WordPress multi-site. I have a WP Engine account, and I have multiple. I have 30 site account because I host other clients. So that helps, helps cover the cost of my WP engine costs. So, there's really not a lot of cost here if you're throwing your own weight behind it and you're not looking to pull money out. And so that's really kind of my advice. And I think, my summary of how all this came about and where I'm at today and where things need to go. And hopefully from my lessons learned, I'm imparting to all of you the difficulties and challenges of doing this, but you can see from the effort that we've made, it's certainly rewarding. It's certainly something that I feel passionate about and something that I'm going to carry forward. And I think, right now, the last thing I'll say is right now you're starting to see acquisitions in the WordPress space. So even if it's not successful for me today, I'm going to carry it forward to the point maybe somebody acquires it, right? And so you have to think about that. And some people think, well, I'll never sell what I love, and but I've been an entrepreneur and I've had a $3 million exit in the past, and I've worked with other companies and startups that have raised and sold, and had shares in those companies. I mean, there's always another idea. There's always another thing that you can get involved in, and that's what a lot of startup founders do. So it's not something that is not beyond the scope of my comprehension to say, okay, I've done all this. Now, if I can't grow it, who can? Who can help me? I'm not going out to look for venture money, doing this bootstrapping, because I don't think WordPress plugins are venture material yet. At this point, there are no, WP Engine and Pantheon are venture backed because they are, they can sell, widgets to, to carpenters. They can sell a million. They can, replicate hosting to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, right? But right now in the WordPress universe, you're seeing acquisitions from larger WordPress plugins acquiring smaller WordPress plugins to add users and subscriptions to their roles. And so that may be the exit strategy in the future. But today, it's really about putting my nose to the grindstone. And even if I have to get a part-time job or keep consulting, I'll do this and do that and keep it moving. So that's my presentation. I hope you all got something out of it.
That was great, Tony. Thank you so much, man.
Sure.
We do have a few questions, but I just wanted to say a couple of things. It's interesting. We've all gotten used to free software on the internet, right? But Tony spends time and money, building this out. And this is a great example of a useful plugin that would be missed if it was gone, right? So people who have installed it need it. And if Tony one day decides to pack it up and say, hey, I'm not doing this anymore, it would be missed. And it's just interesting to me that people don't see that. We've had more than one person at our meetups. Like, I remember this one guy literally said, I don't pay for anything. And it just shocked me that he, just thinks that he could just take, expects support and updates and things like that, right? So what we used to do at the meetup, and I'm sorry, I have a tangent, I'm going on a tangent about this, but I feel strongly about it.
No, this is great. I appreciate it because it's true.
When we met in person, and a couple of years ago, we used to actually take a $5 fee per person at the meetup. And we would get 50 to 100 people showing up. And we would also take a vote on the most useful plugins that the group was using. And we would donate that money to that plugin author. And it's just something that I don't think people, realize. I'm going to just share my screen really quick and just show something. Again, I have no, I'm not making any money off of this or anything, but here's a great example. Here's contact form 7 on the WordPress.org site. I don't know if you use it. You may use it. If you use it, if you're one of the 5 million people that use it, you don't want to, I'm guessing if it went away tomorrow, you'd have to rebuild your contact forms in some other plugin, right? But but down here, they have a donate button. And all you have to do is click this and, he asks you to donate. He's asking, $7, and that's it. And then you get, and it feels like you did something right. So anyway, just a thought. If you're using plugins, if you really can't live without them, if they're helping you out, if they're making you money, donate, right? Why not? All right, that's enough of that. So let me get to some questions here.
No.
What was that?
I was just talking to my wife. She just asked me a question.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to say, and I'm going to put this in the chat. You talked about committing to GitHub and WordPress.org. 10up has a really great GitHub action that I have used before. And essentially, you commit to GitHub, and it automatically deploys to WordPress.org. And you can update just your README file, or you can also update the version, and it works great. I've never had a problem with it. Anyway, so I just posted it. I thought I did. Yeah, I posted it in the chat, so you can pick that up. And if you want, feel free to email me, and I'll give you a little more information on that. All right?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome. All right, so a couple of questions here. Mike Demo is asking, do you sell on any marketplaces or only direct?
Only direct. Like Gravity Forms and Ninja Forms and AI SEO, and I want to be established as a premium plugin that more sophisticated users are going to want to purchase. I don't want to be in an aggregator model competing for the lowest price. When somebody like runs through ThemeForest or Code Canyon, they're like, okay, well, and I've done it, so I know, I've done it and said which one's priced lower. But then I purchased higher priced ones because I thought they were better, they were more well done. But I didn't know because I couldn't figure it out because I couldn't. The other thing about the marketplace is having a ThemeForest account for the user is problematic in some ways, because when they have to get a license key and they have to give control to a client, and it becomes a little murky and muddy of how to pass along the control of the plugin unless you have your client. And that's what I do. I have my clients sign up to ThemeForest to buy stuff that I buy off there for them. I don't buy it because I know once I do, it's really convoluted to try to hand it over to them. And I don't want to incur the upgrade charge and then have to bill them for it and have them pay me back. So that's why I don't use aggregators, because we want to be considered a premium. We want to have that brand equity, that brand identity to be, they're standalone. Like we don't want to have to be needy and go to that just because it's there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great. And by the way, you can turn on your camera. You're allowed to. You're the speaker, and we love to see you answer these questions. Gene is asking, how realistic is it for an unknown to have a podcast? Not with money as the end result, but to build a following. And are you significant in this quest?
We are not working on podcasting specifically. And the reason for that is because there are 4 or 5 amazing WordPress podcasting plugins. For example, Blueberry, there's a few of them out there. And so I decided, we're working on live radio streaming and not on podcasting. Now, that being said, radio is moving towards an on-demand world, and all radio stations are going to podcast if many of them aren't already. And so podcasting is important to radio's future. And in our plugin, we just separated shows into episodes. And now with an episode, you'll be able to upload and I'm talking to Blueberry about this, and Blueberry I'll partner with, right? Because I don't want to compete with Blueberry. They're already great at what they do. I can't compete with them. It would take me another year to build what they've already built in 7. So there's no reason for me to compete there, but there's a reason for me to partner, because they have an established audience of possible radio stations that they can introduce me to, right? Or a radio station to. And I have radio stations that I can introduce Blueberry to. So in the future, when you have shows and episodes, then you'll have the Blueberry podcasting plugin. You can install it anyway and use that with my episodes post type in our plugin, and then podcast under our episodes right now. So in terms of the monetization, podcasting has exploded. I listen to numerous. I don't listen to podcasts myself specifically, but I listen to the industry and who's talking, and the Spotifys of the world, and who's people are acquiring podcasts and millions of streams. And my friend Jeannie Hopper in New York, who's on my board of advisors, she is a podcasting consultant, so she would be a great person to ask, and she can be found. She's on the she has her own station, her own website, but Jeannie Hopper is a great person, and she's on our board of advisors. Now I haven't added her to it just happened. So I haven't added her to my board on the site yet, but if you could just remember that name, she'd be a good person to ask. But you can generate revenue in podcasting, but it's, obviously it's economies of scale, just like anything. You have to get 10, 20, 30,000 downloads, 50,000 downloads for anybody to take notice. And then you have to get advertising. So how do you do it first? Well, I think a lot of people approach it from a local level first and start it on a local level and start charging, the local brew pub or the local, this person to sponsor it. And then you can kind of grow it from there. But just like anything that we do in media, numbers matter, and you're going to have a niche that people are going to want to really engage with. I started netmix back in 1996 as basically it was live streaming, but it was the early part of that, and we aggregated, because I was early, I could aggregate 1 million unique visitors by 2000, right? Because I was the only one on the block, or 2-3 people on the block, and everybody was looking at us. But now, there's 37, and even Apple's getting into the mix show now. They acquired a mix show company just to get their content, and now they're starting to play with the idea that DJs can submit mixes to Apple. So you're playing in that world now of podcasting. If you were in it 5 years ago, growing your brand, growing your podcast, sure, it'd be a lot easier. But today, you're going to have a harder time to grow your audience unless you're persistent and you have something to say and a unique way to say it.
Great. Thank you, Tony.